Hey everybody, welcome or welcome back. A very common question for me is, Lisa, can I put this through expenses? So today we're going to talk about deductible expenses. But before we get into exactly what we can and what we can't deduct, then I'd first of all just like to do a very quick demonstration of the power of deductible expenses. Now let's imagine that you are a full-size business and you need to buy yourself a new laptop, and you don't need anything super fancy, and also you would like to be able to deduct the whole cost of the laptop in 1 year rather than depreciating it over a period of time, which means you can't buy something that costs you any more than 500 euros. Now, happily, especially for my example, you have found a laptop that costs exactly 500 euros. Of course, this 500 euros is made up partially of 20% TVA. So if you're a full-size business and you declare TVA, then the first thing you're going to do is deduct these 83 euros, which is going to leave you with a cost of 417 euros for this laptop. But we haven't finished there, because your corporation tax liability is also reduced because of this expense. So let's imagine that you are in the 15% corporation tax banding, which is the lowest corporation tax banding, and 15% of 417 euros gives us 63 euros. And that leaves us with an end cost to this laptop of 354 euros. Now let's imagine that you're a micro, so you cannot deduct any costs, and let's imagine that you are not declaring TVA either. So this laptop is straight away going to cost you 500 euros. There's nothing we can do about that. However, to have these 500 euros in your pocket, you also need to have earned money and paid social charges on money and potentially income tax on money before you can have these 500 euros to spend. Now let's imagine that you are a commerçant and you pay 12% in social charges. Well, that means that you have to pay 68 euros in social charges on a total of 568 euros to have 500 euros in your pocket. If you're a micro big and you pay 21%, well, you have to earn 633 euros. You have to pay 133 euros in social charges to have these 500 euros in your pocket. And if you are a micro BNC, now paying 25% in social charges, then the end cost of this laptop is going to be a whopping 666 euros. And if you need to pay income tax, then it's going to cost you even more than that. So the difference is huge. If you do the same calculation for all of your expenses, then it adds up very, very quickly. Okay, so now you're all convinced that you want to be able to deduct professional expenses. Does that mean you can put all of your expenses through your business? Well, unfortunately, no, it doesn't. We do have a couple of criteria that we need to respect when we want to put professional expenses through. And the first two are administrative. So the first thing we need is an invoice, and the invoice needs to be made out in your company name, not your personal name. It needs to be your company name, your company address if it's different from your own, and that needs to be very, very clear. The second thing is this invoice needs to be dated within the fiscal year that you would like to deduct it. So imagining that your business year runs from January to December, and sometime in January you realize that you bought something last December that you forgot to put through expenses. Well, you missed the boat. You cannot put it through in the new year. If you buy something in January and you forget to put it through until October, then no problem, you can put it through in October. The only thing that's going to happen is that you won't be able to reclaim the TVA straight away, so that's going to be a bit later, but you can put it in at any point up until the end of your fiscal year. Okay, so you've done that. Let's talk about what you can and what you can't put through. There are some things that will never ever be acceptable as professional expenses. And I don't think you need to worry too much about these first ones because they're unlikely to apply to you. This law was written in the 1970s and it hasn't been changed since. So if you were thinking of inviting clients or collaborators to go hunting or fishing, well then you will not be able to put that cost through your business, unfortunately. If you were thinking of buying or renting a yacht, then you won't be able to do that either. And if you were thinking of buying or renting a villa, then you can't do that either. If you were on the point of doing that, then I'm really sorry to break the bad news to you, but I think probably not many of you are. So we've mentioned yachts. How about company cars? Can you buy a car through your business? You can. However, will you be able to write off the full cost of its expense? That's incredibly unlikely. If you buy either a petrol or a diesel car now, you're going to be incredibly limited with what you can put through company expenses. Even if you buy an electric car, well, then you're going to be less limited, but still limited, and hybrid is different again. But suffice to say, it's incredibly unlikely that you will be able to deduct the full cost of a vehicle through your business. On top of that, you will be subject to company vehicle tax, and that is something that, although you have to pay it, you cannot deduct as a company expense. So it's like a tax on a tax, because you can't deduct it from your corporation tax at the end of the year. Now let's talk about some of the things that you can put through your business. There are many things that fit under this description that previously you have probably been paying out of your own pocket. The most obvious are your utility bills. If you work from home, even if you're not renting your office space to yourself, which is perfectly doable, and I made a video about that, you still have utilities costs. So water, electricity, gas, you've got telephone, internet. You cannot put the whole lot through, obviously. This is a property that you're living in, but definitely a percentage of it can be put through the business. So you'll take a pro rata, and there will be no problem with you doing that at all. If you use your own vehicle for business purposes, then yes, you can reimburse yourself, no tax, no social charges, and that's very much worth doing. However, if you are on your way to a business appointment and you are late and you happen to get a speeding fine, then unfortunately your speeding fine is not a business expense, even if you were on your way to a work-related activity. If you're late with your TVA, if you're late with your ERSAF, if you have any administrative fines imposed on you, none of those fines are tax-deductible expenses, so another good reason to stay ahead. Now, things that people ask about which can be deductible a bit. These are things like clothes, hair, makeup, nails. If you are, for example, a doctor or a dentist, you need a white coat. If you are a lawyer, you need your robes. If you are a security officer and you need a suit, then these are deductible. For anybody else, like if you want to buy yourself a really nice suit and you say it's for work, that's not going to wash, because the tax office are just going to say yes, but you could also very easily wear it. If you're invited to a dinner or a christening or whatever, then they just won't allow it. Now you can find yourself with an exception if you're invited to something like a big gala dinner where the invitation says evening wear obligatory. Well then, yes, you can go out and buy yourself something. However, you must keep your invitation, and you must be able to prove that you bought this outfit or this dinner, and the two are inextricably linked. And the same for hair, makeup, nails, all that kind of thing. In general, the answer is going to be no. If you can prove to the tax office that having perfect hair, perfect nails, perfect makeup has a direct impact on your ability to earn money, and if you did not have these things, then you would earn less money or you wouldn't be earning money at all, well then you have an argument for it. Anything less than that and the tax office are going to reject your expenses, which means that even though you have paid for them out of your business account, then they will be reintegrated into your earnings for the year and you'll be taxed on them. Does that mean we can't have any fun? Can we never go out for lunch or dinner at a restaurant? Can we invite other people? Let's imagine that I have to go somewhere for an appointment and I am far away from home and I need to eat lunch out. I'm limited to 15 euros approximately a day. If you want to invite other people out, now this depends not so much on the amount that you spend, but on who it is that you're inviting. Say I want to take my nephew out for lunch. Let's imagine I take him to McDonald's and I spend 10 euros. Well, even though it's only 10 euros, it's my nephew and he has nothing to do with my work, so that is not a business expense. Now let's imagine that I want to take out one of my best clients who gives me lots and lots of referrals. I can actually take her to a really nice restaurant, and that is a business expense because she's demonstrably a client it's demonstrably in the best interest of my business. And I do need to ask the restaurant for an invoice in my business name. I need to explain in my diary that today I'm having lunch with such and such a person. And so if the tax office ever does kind of come and ask me any questions about that, I can prove exactly who I was with and what I was doing. And in that case, yes, that is a justifiable business expense. Now, I wouldn't recommend spending 3,000 euros on dinner, although I'm sure that's possible. But our expenses also need to be proportionate to our activity. So if I had a multi-million euro international company and I wanted to spend thousands of euros on a dinner, that wouldn't be a problem. But within a small outfit, you're not going to spend 3,000 euros on dinner if your turnover in a month is only 5,000 or 6,000 euros, because the proportionality is not respected. So to recap our 4 rules, we need a formal invoice with our business name on it. The invoice needs to be dated in the year that we want to deduct it. The expense needs to be demonstrably and directly in our business's interests, and it cannot be disproportionate to our business's activity. And if you need to ask yourself too many questions about is this expense deductible or not, the chances are it's probably not. If this has been helpful to you, I would really love it if you subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.